They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hey, what is up guys, it is Seatin here, and today we're going to be talking about Purifier, the most OP tank healing spec in the world, or single target healing spec. It is just absolute beast mode in 3.0 at the moment, and it is essential for any aspiring Cleric healer to have this spec in their arsenal. It is literally so damn good, it is going to make your life in expert dungeons very, very easy, and especially when you get into raids, you're going to have at least one really good Purifier. Now, Purifier has a ton of strengths. So basically it provides strong shields that heavily mitigate single target damage. It brings the most overpowered raid cooldown in the game to the table, which is Flame of Life. Look at it, it is crazy OP. It restores health equal to 150% of the cleric's maximum health to up to 10 group or raid members over 6 seconds. So that is a big meaty heal right there. It has very strong single target cooldowns such as Spiritual Conflagration, Latent Blaze, and Rite of the Forge. Those are amazing for all sorts of sort of oh shit tank moments. It has Cauterize, which is, sorry, no, it's not Cauterize, it's Sterilize, which is the most overpowered and powerful cleanse in the game. So instead of removing like one curse or 3 curses or, you know, negative effects, it removes all of them on the target. So it doesn't matter if your target has like 100 stacks of a debuff, boom, 20-second cooldown, gonna remove all of them. So that is a very big pro bringing to the table. And the final thing is, it is a very straightforward spec to play. The rotation, just kind of the standard tank spam one, is just ridiculously easy. So yeah, we're gonna talk about all that fun stuff on today's video. But first we want to go over the spec. Now the spec I use, there are kind of 2 different specs you can use. So I actually use the spec without the Dream Soul. So there's a non-Dream Soul spec and there's a Dream Soul spec. So the spec I use, fairly standard, 61 Purifier, 15 Sentinel, and you can put 0 in whatever. Literally it does not matter and nothing will make a huge difference. I kind of just tend to ignore the 0 anyway. But if you do have the Dream Souls, what you can do is you can put 61 in Purifier, 11 in Sentinel, take 4 points out of Divine Understanding, and then chuck 4 points in Oracle for increased spell power and healing. And you'll also get, Inspiration of Battle and Boon of Vitality, sort of a small damage and endurance buff, which can kind of be handy for 5-mans, but you know, I don't know, I'm more of the kind of straightforward 61-15 spec myself. The difference between the two is very minimal. Like, there is practically nothing, so that doesn't really matter too much in my opinion. But anyway, let's talk about the masteries quickly. So, not too many of them matter that much. The ones that I have gone for, level 61, Righteous Protection. The main thing you get from that one is it increases the chance for your Clear the Coals proc, if known to proc, by 5%, and that is awesome for Purify. You definitely need that. Level 62, it's Divine Inspiration. So what happens is that increases basically healing and absorption down by 5%. Very awesome. Level 63, I have Swift Judgment. It really, for this one, it is a toss-up between Swift Judgment, Meditation, and Supplicant's Haste. It really doesn't matter which one you go for. You can have a bit of increased movement speed passively, stacks of movement speed, or a bit more mana regeneration. However, that mana regeneration is a bit crappy, but you can also get a kind of double cleanse on that, which in some scenarios is quite useful. You know, you might opt to go for that, but personally, I just like the 10% unmounted movement speed. I can move out of crap faster, and that is just a clear winner for me. Level 64, you want to go for Diversify. This allows you to have 2 Purifier sign buffs on you at one time, which is, you know, awesome. More buffs the better. And then level 65, it's kind of a toss-up between Divine Favor, which is sort of this one, and Soul Stream. Now, for the majority of people, if you're running 5-mans, without a doubt, it's Divine Favor. But when you kind of get into a raiding scenario, it is kind of debatable whether Soul Stream will be better if it is needed, because basically Divine Favor will heal 3 people. You can pick 3 targets, put a buff on them, and whenever you heal, that's going to heal them for an absolute crap load. Literally, it's going to be about like 9 to 15k in moderately kind of, for a moderately geared Cleric. Even more for a raid geared Cleric. So that is just really, really awesome. But Soulstream is this massive channeled heal ability, which, you know, may fall ahead in raids if there are certain encounters, which maybe have like a very spiky bit of tank damage and you need that additional cooldown to lay it over. But for most scenarios, it is going to be Divine Favor, and definitely in Experts, it is Divine Favor, because that one is just like 220% win right there. So that is it really for the spec and the masteries. It's fairly straightforward. Again, a lot of this stuff is fairly debatable, but this is what I use, and you know, it works pretty damn well for me. You know, I've managed to heal literally very, very crappy geared tanks through some of the hardest hitting expert dungeons by myself, so I'm pretty proud of that. So yeah, let's talk about kind of the rotation and everything else. So before we start talking about the rotation, I'm just going to give you a couple of macros and an important thing to understand. Actually, when I say a couple, there is literally only one macro I use, which is this one. It's in a bit of an odd position, but basically what it is the Latent Blaze macro. So what I've done is I've macro Touch of the Light and Flashover and Latent Blaze together. This means I can instantly throw out a Latent Blaze that is guaranteed to critically hit if it procs. Latent Blaze is an ability where if the target is below 30% health, it instantly restores a very, very large amount of health to them. And if you keep this on the tank, whenever they drop below 30%, they are going to instantly be topped up. And it is an amazing buffer for Purifiers to have. So that's kind of one of the core elements of Purifier. It is always try and keep Latent Blaze up on your tanks or tanks that you are healing. On certain fights, if you know somebody's going to take a lot of damage or maybe your tank's a bit crappy, you might want to throw this on the person that's going to take damage or yourself if you fear that you're going to get aggro via healing. Now, onto the more important things to understand. Now, you basically have 2 shields in the spec. You have Symbol of the Sun and Symbol of the Torch, which are your shields. Symbol of the Sun is the big one, and Symbol of the Torch is the slightly smaller one. Now, you can only have 3 of each shield active at any time, so this is a total of 6 shields between the 2, 3 of each active at any time. If you sort of put more than 3 of a shield on, they're active on more than 3 targets at any time, basically the first one that you applied is going to be removed. So you need to be sure not to put more than 3 shields on any target at a time. So yeah, that's quite an important thing to bear in mind. Whenever you apply a shield to somebody, what it's going to do is it's going to apply this 14-second debuff called Burnout, which means that they can't receive a symbol until that sort of debuff expires. However, via talents such as Clear the Coals and also your Mastery, you do have a 15% chance when healing that target to remove the buff so that you can, you know, instantly apply the shield again, and that's pretty damn cool. Now, another thing that I want to mention about shields like Symbol of the Sun, if they are removed within 3 seconds, which in expert dungeons and tanks they often are, so if you apply it, it's removed within 3 seconds, it is instantly going to reapply again. Now, if it's removed within another 3 seconds after that, it is not going to instantly reapply again. That does only happen once, but still, it is absolutely amazing for tank. That's what makes Purifier so good for experts, because if you use a shield, it's likely going to be, you know, quickly devoured and then just quickly put on again. And the shields do shield for a lot. They are very, very big. Like the big one, it can possibly crit for doing sort of 50k plus, and if it doesn't crit, it's gonna, you know, shield for about 20 to 28k, really depending on your gear. If you have more raid gear, it could be sort of like, we're looking at kind of 30 to 40k non-crit and 60k plus crits. So that is very, very awesome. Now, one thing, another thing about shield, there's literally so many little details about shields. Whenever you shield a target, they are going to get a buff called Feed the Flames, and this will increase the healing received by that target by 20% from all of your fire abilities and other Purifier's fire abilities. So basically, targets that are shielded for the next 20 seconds, they take 20% more healing from you and all your flame abilities. So that is something that is very, very important to kind of bear in mind. Another thing is, as Purifier, you are going to have quite a few mana problems. So it is pretty essential for any Purifier to really stock up on mana potions. I'm personally at the moment just using kind of the old crappy ones, because the way that your kind of standard soul mana regen is to sacrifice a bit of maximum health and then restore 7% mana in return, which when you're in kind of the heat of a very, very intense fight when there's damage, you can't really afford to waste the global cooldowns, sort of, pressing soul brand. So you really do need those off global cooldown mana potions to, quickly restore your mana and ensure that you have enough mana to survive. So that is pretty much it for the shields, guys, and all these sort of intricates there. Now, just onto buffs. Buffs are very straightforward. You have Caregiver's Blessing. That basically gives your single target heals an additional small shield every time you use them. This shield can crit as well. Usually absorbs about 3.5k damage, so every heal that you throw it out is going to throw a small shield as well. You have Sign of Faith, which basically any target that you've recently healed or shielded is going to take 7% less damage. Heroic Resolve increases endurance raid-wide. Wisdom of the Ages increases wisdom raid-wide. Those two buffs in a raid environment, though, are probably going to get overwritten by support buffs from, for example, like a Archon, a Bard, or Oracle. They are probably going to overwrite those two buffs. Then you have Sign of Anticipation. This causes your basically your healing absorb spells to increase the target's dodge and block by 3%, and at the moment, avoidance is very, very overpowered. So that is very, very useful for a Purifier to have and, be slapping on the tank, because they're going to have, a 3% additional chance to essentially take no damage. And yay, no damage is always good for you as a healer. You want to try and avoid as much damage as possible. The last buff that you have is from your masteries is Divine Favor. So what you initially need to do is you need to click it to cast it on yourself, and then you will have to pick 3 targets to cast it on. Usually kind of my rule is put 1 on the tank and the other 2 on kind of 2 top DPS if you're in a 5-man group. If you're in a rage, you're probably going to want to stick all your Divine Favors on the tanks, but when it comes to a 5-man group, it is the tank and the 2 top DPS. That is that tends to work pretty damn well. Now let's talk about the easy mode rotation. So literally it is very, very straightforward, okay? You want to keep Latent Blaze on your target, that is number 1 on your easy mode rotation. You want to keep Symbol of the Sun on your target whenever you can cast it. And then all you literally have to do is alternate Flame Ward and Ward of Fire. That is literally the rotation. So you literally Flame Ward, Ward of Fire, so Ward of Flame, which is the channeled ability, and then Ward of Fire, Ward of Flame, and then wait for it, Ward of Fire, Ward of Flame, and Ward of Fire, and rinse and repeat that, and it is just ridiculously easy to do. That is kind of the maximum single target HPS you can get out of the kind of standard rotation, and you don't want to ideally overwrite Symbol of the Sun, so kind of in a standard, PV environment, you would wait till a Symbol of the Sun had expired off the tank via damage, and then reapply it again. Apart from that, it is 1 times Ward of Flame, and then 1 times Ward of Fire. Really, really simple stuff. Now let's really talk about kind of the cooldowns that you have as a Purifier and how to combo them. Now there are kind of five different cooldowns that a Purifier has. So the main one is Fiery Will, which increases your damage and healing done with fire spells by 25% and absorption granted with fire spells by 50% for 15 seconds. Now Fiery Will is amazing to combo with another cooldown, which is Rite of the Forge, which basically applies a large absorption shield to the target every 3 seconds for 15 seconds. So if you combo that together, that is going to be applying a big shield every 3 seconds for over 15 seconds. So that is really, really damn awesome. During this time, it's also going to increase the shielding of your Symbol of the Sun and, a variety of other shielding abilities that you have, which is pretty much most of your single target heals. You can also combo sort of Fiery Will with Gathering Flames, which is kind of a fairly smallish AoE shield that when that AoE shield breaks, it's going to heal the targets for a very small amount as well. So yeah, there's not too much. That one isn't that strong. It's a lot weaker now than it was in the previous expansion, but it is still, nice for mitigating that raid-wide damage. The next kind of 2 cooldowns you have, as I said at the start, is Flame of Life, and that one is just absolutely amazing. Restores a very, very large amount amount of health to up to 10 players. Literally, if there's like an old crap in your expert dungeon, use that ability. Everybody is going to be topped up within literally a matter of seconds. And yeah, it's very, very awesome ability to use. And then you have Spiritual Conflagration. Now, Spiritual Conflagration is basically a much stronger version of your Ward of Flame spell. That's really the very simple way to think about it. So it does the exact same thing that Ward of Flame does, but on a much more powerful level. So kind of the healing and shielding is a bit stronger, but not really that much stronger, I'd say. You know, it's not that much more powerful, but it is essentially more than what a Ward of Flame would be. So that's really all you do have to bear in mind. I mean, one final thing I want to chuck in here is that you have basically another buff you can apply to the tank, and whenever you kind of heal them, that'll deal damage to whatever target the tank is tanking. So that's going to be, you know, not really much of a game changer, but that additional bit of DPS that can help on, you know, very DPS intensive fights where you're trying to squeeze out every number that you possibly can muster. In terms of damaging abilities, Purifier really doesn't have that much. It's not really meant to be a damaging soul at all, so the main damage is going to be from Eruption. You do have an AoE called Firewall, which basically you can put down 3 of these at any time. It's going to deal a fairly large amount of like fire damage. However, for people on low-end computers, this actually does lag out their computers quite a bit. So literally, if you're running with people that can't handle the VFX of a firewall, it is probably going to crash them and make them do less DPS. So it's not always a superb idea using firewall. That's just something to sort of bear in mind. Apart from that, that is pretty much it for the Purifier guide. One more macro that I do use actually is I have macroed kind of 2 healing abilities together. Now these are kind of my spot healing abilities for either myself or another party or raid member that doesn't have Divine Favor on them. So basically I have macroed, I can't even find it now, it's Healing Breath and Healing Flare together. So I have those 2 macroed together, so literally I can just run around and spam them, and literally as I'm spamming this, also all the heals from my Divine Favor are going to take off. So I will usually use this on fights where maybe there's not much tank damage, like for example the second boss in Citadel, and I just need to kind of, you know, like top me or the other DPS that doesn't have Divine Favor on up. But that is pretty much it for the guide, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Purifier guide. I hope you learned a thing or two about how to play. Thank you for watching. Take care and have an absolutely great day.